Hi, it's Becky with The Better Way to Homeschool, and today I wanted to address a comment that I got from a viewer on the last video where she had a question because her child has Asperger's and sometimes she has challenges motivating him to complete his work. And so what I did is I reached out to my community because I'm not an expert on Asperger's, and actually I really don't know much about it at all. But what I've found is that whenever I don't know something, the best thing that I can do for myself and to model for my children is to find other people that do know about it and then to glean their wisdom, to pick and choose what works best for my life, and then to implement that. And what I found in talking to people about Asperger's and with various sites out there is that really it's not much different than homeschooling children that don't have Asperger's. And I want to explain what I mean. I'm going to address the Asperger's at the end of this clip, so please hang tight if that's your child. But really, each and every one of us is uniquely created by God with their own special thumbprint, their own special personality, their own special learning styles, learning abilities, gifts, weaknesses, all those things. Not one of your children are the same. I know this personally because I have 5 boys, and what worked for my oldest does not work for any of the other ones. And so the first thing that I want you to know is that the advice that I would give you for a child that has what society would call a special need or even a learning disability, first of all, I don't think that. I think that every single one of us is uniquely created, like I said, and every one of us has different strengths and different weaknesses. And so what we first need to do is to back up. If you're a new homeschooler, and by new I mean homeschooling for 1 to 3 years, then really you're still in the introduction to homeschool stage, and your primary goal during this time should be to really study your kids. The very first thing that you should do is to sit down, if you're married, to sit with your spouse, if you're single, just to take some quiet time and to figure this out. It takes a couple days, but your first thing that you should do is create a vision for your homeschool. What are your goals? Why do you homeschool? What are the fundamental things that you want your kids to learn? In my home, our fundamental goals are to introduce our kids to the Lord and to model and show them how wonderful He is. That's our first personal goal, and everything that we do stems from that. Our second goal is that our kids would learn their math facts, inside and out. Add, subtract, multiply, and divide, inside, outside, backwards, period. No matter how long it takes. That's the goal. Our third goal is that our kids are well read and exposed to great literature. And all of these goals are going to vary between my house and your house, but these are my goals that I'm sharing with you, mine and my husband's. Our last goal is that our kids become excellent communicators, both orally, in their oral communication, and in the written word. We want them to be able to articulate both out loud and on paper. And so once those goals were set in stone, meaning my husband and I discussed them, we decided that that's what would dictate success in our home. Once we figured out that, then we could step back and we could look at what exactly do we want our kids to know this year in mathematics, or what books do we want them to read, or what styles of writing do we want them to conquer. Once we have our goal, then it makes filtering through curriculum and books and choices 1,000% easier. But the first couple years, it's really hard to break away from a public school kind of mindset. In my mind, school was sitting at a table completing worksheets, and I personally was perfectly content with that. But my boys have revolted against that. That's not their learning style. So again, regardless of whether or not your child is gifted brilliantly in music, dance, art, math, English, etc., or if they have challenges that slow them down. I have a child that's needed multiple major surgeries through our homeschooling career. And so we have that issue to deal with. Some of you may have children that society would say have learning disabilities like Aspergers or dyslexia, etc., etc., etc. Those aren't bad things when you just need to take them into consideration when you're teaching your child. So what does that all mean? You have your goals, you've looked at your child and you've identified their strengths and their weaknesses. So, for instance, I have a child that in order for him to fully embrace learning, he has to touch things like dirt, plants, bugs, animals, etc. He's a nature brain. And so if I want him to learn best, I take him outside. We incorporate gardening in as much as we can. And that environment opens up his brain to learn better, and he embraces what we're learning 1,000 times better than if I were to sit him at a table with a piece of paper and a pencil and say, please write about how you plant a garden, or please write about what the Egyptians planted back in the ancient civilizations. So, does that make sense so far? You need to have family goals about homeschooling. You need to study your kids, which can take 1 year to 3 years to really get to know who they are as a student. And then, once you have that, then you can lay curriculum or learning experiences on top of that. For the mom specifically that asked about Asperger's, the advice that I got back from moms that have kids with Asperger's was the same. They said that the first couple years were really, really frustrating because they were trying to fit their child into a box, meaning that they had a preconceived idea of what school should look like, and their child didn't fit into that preconceived idea. So they had to take the time to step back to study what made their child's brain tick. And then they had to modify their expectations to suit the child. And that's the beauty of homeschooling. It's what we all should be doing with our children, feeding into their gifts and talents and helping support their weaknesses, but really building up their strengths. So the other thing that the moms said were that they try to limit the subjects that they try to accomplish in a given day, that on a harder day they only do 2 subjects, and on a good and great day they might only do 3 or 4 subjects. And they take multiple breaks in the day, and instead of having their students in particular sit there with paper and pen or worksheets or test books or that type of thing, they give their child a keyboard and a computer or a dry erase board, and they look for alternate ways for their children to demonstrate that they've learned what it is that they're teaching them. Does that make sense? I don't have to do 100 speed drill questions on a paper within 2 minutes to demonstrate that I know my multiplication tables. I can tell them to you, I can sing them to you, I can create a story, I can create a PowerPoint, I can do the drill sheet, I can write with a dry erase marker on a window, I can scratch them in the sand, etc., etc. I can build them with Legos, I can build them with Barbie shoes or whatever you've got around. Really, once you start to see the way that your child's brain works, it becomes easier and easier to customize what it is you're doing with that child. But you'll always fight that, should I be doing it a different way? And that's because we tend to compare ourselves with other people. We tend to compare our children with other children, or what we're doing in homeschool versus what somebody else is doing in homeschool. And really, it's homeschool. Nobody knows my children better than I do, and nobody knows your children better than you do. So take the time to take a step back, to establish your household goals for your homeschool. The homeschool journey, not just this year. You should have a homeschool journey goal as well as a this year goal, a weekly goal, a daily goal. On a good day, you should have all that. But don't worry, the plumber will need to become called in order to fix something, and it'll throw a monkey wrench in it like it did for me today. But you still have that overall plan. So I hope this helps you. If you have any questions or comments that would help and encourage this mom that has a child with Asperger's, please add that into the comment section below. And if you are enjoying these videos or if you're finding this information helpful, please be sure to subscribe to this YouTube channel. I'm trying to make videos as often as I can in between homeschooling the kids. I really have a heart for you new and frustrated homeschoolers, so don't hesitate to ask me anything about homeschooling, and if I don't know, then I'll do like I did for this mom with Asperger's, and I'll ask around and find some viable sources. I may not have been able to address Asperger's directly, but there are experts that know the things that work with Asperger's, and you just need to take that into account as you're structuring your school day. Don't try to make your child fit into a box he was not created to fit into. I have a child that would actually burn the box rather than allow himself to be put into the box. So I understand that it can be challenging and that it takes time, but you love your child. You are looking for the answers, and you will find them. Just take your time. Enjoy the process because it goes really, really quickly. Anyway, this is Becky. You can find me at abetterwaytohomeschool.com, and I hope you have a wonderful, wonderful day with your kids.